Welcome back, TESOL 2022. I'm Amy Sweezy, and I have another special guest here. This is Sara Davila, and Sara is from Immerse as well. We spoke to Misty Wilson from Immerse, one of your coworkers, just a little while ago. So we brought Sara back in, though, because Sara wants to or can address some other questions that we had about Immerse. Tell me a little about, Misty talked to us a little bit about what Immerse is and how it works. So just kind of give me the quick, overview of it again to remind people, but also tell me what is unique about this format.
So Immerse, if Misty talked about it earlier, probably the most unique thing about the format is we are actually teaching languages in virtual reality. The entire goal is to be able to bring students in real time into a synchronous virtual reality application where they will be able to engage with others to develop language. And this is the first VR application that's been designed for synchronous language learning. There's never been anything like this on the planet before. There have been some language apps that are done that are asynchronous, which are you go in and you're doing flashcards in VR, it's very different from having a teacher there facilitating a lesson. The second thing that makes Immerse really unique is we get to take advantage of task-based and problem-based learning through an online modality. And I think a lot of English teachers, a lot of language teachers, one of the hardest parts about the pandemic was losing our classrooms. We could no longer set up a group activity, stand back and observe that activity and see how learning was happening. But by moving learning into a virtual reality platform, you bring that back to the teacher. The teachers can stage an activity, have students start working in groups, and in VR, move back from the students. And because it's all technology, they're not going to lose any sound or audio. And just like Zoom, we can use audio channels. So you can even have students working in groups and jump in and kind of like listen in onto what's happening, which helps you with scaffolding, giving feedback and giving support in real time. So it's a very different way to think about teaching and learning, especially now that a lot of us are using technology enhanced learning. And I think the affordances of virtual reality, really being able to facilitate parent group work, being able to do lots of collaborative projects and task-based learning, and doing all of this in embodied context and a variety of scenarios that are relevant to the real world and to the learners is what makes this a really powerful and unique platform. And then we get into the pedagogy, which is a bit different as well. Essentially you can use any of your CLT pedagogies, your communicative language teaching pedagogies will work inside of the application. And we've designed it so that we've created a variety of different types of instructional tools that teachers can use to facilitate these tasks. So teachers can custom create a graphic organizer that students will use to do a categorization task in virtual reality. And to make it as easy as possible, it's an LMS type authoring system. So you're not learning how to code in VR. I don't want you to have to program VR objects. Go in, write your cards, write your flashcards, write your graphic organizer, push play, and there you go. It's there for the students and they can start to interact with it.
You work with the curriculum side of things and the learning design. Speak to that a little bit.
So designing curriculum for virtual reality is something new. We've talked a lot in the industry about how a lot of teachers are instructional designers, and now I'm kind of a learning experience designer. You're thinking about bringing students into an entirely new world, and what do you do? So one of the things that we really had to think through is I'm in virtual reality. Now I can do a flashcard activity, that makes sense, I'm teaching language, but I also am surrounded by virtual realia. I am surrounded by a platform where gravity works the way I program it to. So I have things that I can do, like I can create a card or a picture and literally just hang it in midair. I can have my students do 3D mapping for concepts. So they can take a virtual reality 3D pen and I can say, what I want you to do is to find objects that are the same inside of this virtual space and connect them by a 3D line. And I can have my students running around in literal air, marking things with their markers and writing names on things, drawing lines, making connections. That's something you couldn't do in a real classroom without probably involving a lot of administrative oversight. It would be really challenging. I mean, other things that I can do in VR, it's just like we have what we call a kitchen. And in our virtual reality kitchen, we've programmed it so things happen. So students can come in, they can grab knives, they can chop food, they can cook the food on a grill, they can serve it to order on a plate and prepare it to send out. But what's even more fun is if you don't interact with your food for a certain time, it will catch on fire. Like you'll have like little things that will suddenly go wrong. And so all of this allows you to think about instructional design in an entirely new kind of way. We're really focused on looking at how the virtual reality, the contextualization of the learner inside of the space replaces a textbook completely. So you have to think, instead of, how do I have my students imagine they're in a cafe? It's like, well, my students are in a literal cafe, so what do I do now? How do I interact with that space? Because I'm not interacting with a picture. I'm not interacting with words on a page. I am interacting inside of a large environment.
Does the teacher have to figure that out then for themselves, or that's what you help them do?
That is what I help them do. So one of the things that we've done is we've spent the last year researching instructional design and strategies for the application. And we've come up with about 45 unique instructional tasks and activities that you can do in virtual reality that you might not be able to do in a traditional classroom setting. So we do a lot of work in thinking through what kind of instructional design will work. And then we're also applying a lot of research-based strategies as well to come up with new ideas for learning. Specifically, we're looking at things like the SAMR framework and the TPAC framework, which are both curriculum frameworks to help teachers organize content in new modalities. So we're leaning a lot into the research of what we know works best for language learning and language education, and we're trying to build in all of those tools and features to make it super easy for teachers to utilize this when they're working with their students. But to be fair, we've been researching on this for about a year and a half, and this is one of the reasons why we really wanted to open the platform up for more research. So our goal for the next year, especially for institutional users, we're not commercially available in the US, but we are available for research. So if you've been thinking about using VR in your classroom, if you're interested in having your students do some VR activities and you're not sure where to get started, reach out to us, tell us what your research question is, let us know what you're interested in researching, and we can help you understand what you'll need to do to build a VR lab in your institution, help you connect with grants and resources and funding for that. We've done a lot of that with schools, and then bring you into our platform and you research and help us discover what are the best uses of virtual reality. So we have quite a few ideas. We provide lots of resources to any institution that does choose to research and work with us. And then we also learn from them as they begin to experiment and design on the platform as well.
Immerse is a sponsor of this TESOL convention. Why was it important to be a part of this?
All right, I'm going to be really honest. This is kind of silly, but I'm wearing this green bracelet, and I don't know if anyone can see this, and it says "Hugs will do." And when I walked in on the first day, there was this table in TESOL, and they had 3 bracelets in 3 colors. The red was like social distance, the yellow was elbow bump, and then green is "Hugs will do." And when I saw that, I immediately sent a picture to Christian Rowe and to Misty, the whole company. And I was just like, this is what our sponsorship has paid for. This is such a phenomenal support for people who are really dealing with a lot of mental health and wellness. A lot of us coming to this is our first conference and live conference in years. So there's just a lot of emotion going into that. Seeing this just immediately made me feel so emotionally secure and comfortable. And I realized, like, if people are using these, I'll be able to identify where they're at and their comfort level. But it also is just such a great representation of TESOL's commitment to neurodivergence and the neurodiverse crowds, because I can also see this being really useful for just communicating what my personal comfort level is beyond the pandemic. So when we were talking about sponsorship this year, it was really about community. We knew that, a lot of teachers won't be here in person. It will still be a heavily virtually attended event. But for us, this is a community relationship. We make sure that teachers, by providing our sponsorship, we're ensuring that teachers have access to this fantastic community, have all of these opportunities to learn, and that also we can engage and let them know that we're here to help with your research and new technologies and how they work for your students as well.
Okay. I want to ask you about the future of learning, the Metaverse. Is this where we're going?
So we get to buzzwords. Like, buzzwords are a thing that happens, and the metaverse has definitely been the buzziest word I think we've heard in a while. And so it's really easy to dismiss it and be like, oh, this is going to be another fad. It's something that's not going to play out. You're already hearing a lot of people going, it's really, the metaverse will be a gaming thing. You're not going to see it anywhere else. And I did a presentation a couple of days ago, and I think it's really important that we actually understand how big this is about to be. The metaverse right now, 2 years ago, it was predicted that the industry would be something like a $30 billion industry in 2025. We're already really close to those numbers. And where the investment in the metaverse is right now, or virtual realities and learning, is in healthcare and health services, it's in supporting seniors and senior services, it's in engineering and the sciences, arts and mathematics. You have a huge community of content generators who are just creating things in the metaverse. But what's interesting to me as an educator is I look at how VR is currently being used very popularly. Medical sciences, they just performed their first virtual reality surgery in real time in VR. They're using it all over the place for advanced training. And even companies like Walmart, companies like Target are using virtual reality to train staff to work with people. So I, as a language educator, know the people that I'm working with, my adults, my students, they're working towards their career. Virtual reality is already impacting industry heavily, which means that this is a tool that my students need to be prepared to use and to communicate well in the next year to year and a half. And so I would say that this is the time to begin exploring with the metaverse. Between now and 5 years from now, it's going to be as ubiquitous in our lives as cell phones have become and smartphones that everyone has. And I do think it's going to heavily impact education because of the way that you can learn through the experience of physically being present in virtual reality. Truly changes how we can engage and think and act in the world. So I think it's going to be quite important. I think that now is the best time to get into it. And if there's anything that we have learned from the pandemic, do not wait until it'll get better. Like, no, this is definitely the time to experiment with it. And then you'll be kind of ready when the technology improves, gets cheaper, and we do find it anywhere.
Okay, fantastic. Sara Davila from Immerse, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for enlightening us about the future of learning.
Absolutely. And thank you, TESOL, for putting this on, not just this year, but for the last 2 years. I attended last year and the year before virtually, and it meant a lot to me to know that even though we couldn't be together in person, that you were making sure the event was available for us and for all teachers around the world. So thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.